Difficult times ahead. The Prime Minister warns of economic challenges to come. Mr Johnson closed the Tory conference with an upbeat speech pledging change, but at a cost.
It will take time, and sometimes it will be difficult, but that was the change that people voted for in 2016, and that was the change that people voted for again powerfully in 2019. And to deliver that change, we will get on with our job of uniting and levelling up across the UK.
Also tonight, in the wake of the Plymouth shootings, disciplinary action against the police amid questions over how the gunman got his licence back. Left in limbo, the Afghan refugees brought to Britain but living without proper homes or hope. And move over T-Rex, meet the tiny tyrant terrorising Britain millions of years before.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. Boris Johnson's keynote speech to the Conservative Party conference was short and, to the cheering delegates who heard it at least, sweet. In many ways, it was a typical performance, a rallying cry full of trademark jokes and banter, built around his theme of levelling up British society. Now, he did predict difficult times ahead, but the reward he claimed would be a high wages, high skill, high productivity and low tax economy. The Bosses' organisation, the CBI, called it a compelling vision, but warned ambition must be backed by action. The unions had a different view, though. Headline chasing hot air, they said. From Manchester, our deputy political editor, Anushka Astana, reports.
Manchester, waking up on the final day of Conservative conference, with Boris Johnson promising to level up northern communities. His speech happening to land on the day the £20 uplift to universal credit was removed. Inside, snaking queues that began at 6 a.m.
Why does everyone want to wait for Boris so long?
What a silly question, young lady.
He's just got the personality, he's got the charisma.
Fire in the belly.
Finally, he was there. One final ruffle, and then out of the shadows and into his natural habitat, the limelight. The Prime Minister starting with a different take on COVID.
And we knew that some people would still be anxious. So we sent top government representatives to our sweatiest boîte de nuit to show that anyone could dance perfectly safely.
Teasing Michael Gove after he was filmed dancing on a colourful night out. Then he spoke about vaccines, the NHS and social care before turning to the centrepiece of the speech.
We're not going back to the same old broken model with low wages, low growth, low skills and low productivity, all of it enabled and assisted by uncontrolled immigration.
It was light on new policy, but did have a £3,000 salary bonus for new maths and science teachers in struggling schools, all part of what the Prime Minister calls levelling up.
Yes, it will take time, and sometimes it will be difficult, but that was the change that people voted for in 2016, and that was the change that people voted for again powerfully in 2019.
He also spoke about violence against women before ending with that trademark optimism.
And that is the spirit we are going to unleash.
From now until the election, Boris Johnson is going to bang on about three words we just heard a lot of: wages, skills and jobs. But he is going to have to drown out those who are shouting about other things, like shortages, inflation and today's big benefit cut.
So what did the Minister in charge of levelling up make of it?
How is it levelling up when a universal credit cut is hitting people in the north more than the south?
Well, I thought the Prime Minister's speech was absolutely brilliant, and I think he defined levelling up so clearly and powerfully as a mix. It's a mix of making sure that we've got investment in transport, investment in skills, investment in infrastructure.
What about the chair of the party?
Funny, entertaining, engaging. Brilliant.
Great about levelling up, but tough when you're cutting benefits that hit the north more than the south.
No answer on that one then. This Red Wall MP liked the speech, but she still doesn't love her party's rise in national insurance.
At the moment, I think we need to be focusing on economic growth, and so a tax on jobs to me wasn't necessarily the right answer. But, you know, the vote was had, I lost, but now it's about working constructively.
Being constructive. That is exactly what Boris Johnson will be hoping for from his party. Anushka Astana, ITV News, Manchester.
So, as we heard then in his conference speech, the Prime Minister warned of difficult times ahead. But for thousands of people on low incomes, those hard times are very much here already. Today, the £20 universal credit uplift, introduced to help struggling households through the pandemic, began to be withdrawn. And as Ben Chapman's been hearing, for many people, it really has been a lifeline.
That £20 a week might not sound a lot, but it gets my children to school.
Most families wouldn't consider the school run a luxury.
On my spelling, I got 10 out of 10.
Fantastic.
Not long ago, Tony Bridgewood wouldn't have, until he had to give up work to look after his twin boys. Finding money for fuel is already a struggle. Losing £20 a week leaves him with more impossible choices.
Sometimes I don't eat anything. It's only what the boys leave sometimes. And the options that I've got, really, is either the broadband or the phone or even school, where I have to take my children to school. There's homeschooling them.
Tony's is among 4.4 million families who are losing the £20 uplift. Making it permanent would cost the government £6 billion every year. Universal credit payments vary, but a young single person will see their standard allowance fall by a quarter, from £79 to £59 a week.
Cutting this lifeline is going to pull 500,000 more people into poverty, including 200,000 children. It's going to drive up debt. It's likely to drive up homelessness.
And right now, budgeting couldn't be harder. Like 40% of those claiming universal credit, Vicky also works. Ministers say they want higher wages, not higher benefits, but short term, that's not much help.
Everything's just going to go up, all of my bills. It's frightening when you don't know how that really is going to affect me. I've got no buffer. I've got nothing there as my safety net other than this.
Now, I hope you like this.
Even with the extra money, Tony has still relied on a food bank. The government says the uplift was only ever temporary, but losing it overnight will make this winter especially hard. Ben Chapman, ITV News, Stoke-on-Trent.
And there is more information about how the withdrawal of the universal credit uplift might affect you on our website, and that's itvnews.com/news. So let's go now to our political editor, Robert Peston, who's in his studio. Robert, we heard there from people already struggling. Now, the Prime Minister has acknowledged that there would be bumps in the road, but how bad might those bumps be?
Bad, though I don't think you'd have guessed that from his speech, which felt at times more like a stand-up routine and certainly a lot like an American-style rally than a sort of detailed plan to get us to that vision that he outlined, which is of a high productivity, high wage United Kingdom. And right now, we are seeing one result of his beloved Brexit, and it's also partly the result of COVID, which is a shortage of lower-skilled employees in important industries, driving food to supermarkets, driving petrol to the forecourts. Alongside all of that, we've got soaring gas prices. We saw new records hit today. There is a genuine cost of living crisis in the making as we speak. Inflation is on the rise. And unfortunately, the pay rises that have gone to those people lucky enough to still have those jobs, for example, driving HGV vans or in abattoirs, are fueling that inflation. Now, when I talk to people in the Treasury, when I talk to people in the City, they fear there are going to be, as a result of that rising inflation, interest rate rises next year. It does look difficult, although, truthfully, you got almost no hint of that from the Prime Minister today.
All right, Robert Peston in West London, thank you. Now, formal disciplinary notices were issued today to a police officer and a member of police staff over the mass shootings in Plymouth in August. The police watchdog is investigating how Jake Davison came to have a licence for the shotgun with which he shot dead 5 people, including a 3-year-old girl. Corrie is here. OK, so tell us more about this.
Well, the worst mass shooting in the UK for a decade has raised questions, as you say, over why Jake Davison had a gun and a licence. A gun that he used to kill 5 people, including his mum, Maxine, and 3-year-old Sophie Martin, before he took his own life. Since then, the police watchdog, the Independent Office for Police Conduct, has been examining how he came to have that gun, why his application in 2017 for a licence was approved, and why was his gun returned to him just weeks before the killing after being removed when he'd assaulted 2 teenagers. Today, the watchdog said that it had issued disciplinary notices to 2 members of police staff. The first with a gross misconduct notice for their handling of Davison's original shotgun application in 2017 and for deciding to return the weapon to him. The second, a police officer issued with a misconduct notice that was responsible for investigating the assaults in 2020. This doesn't necessarily mean that either of these people will be disciplined at the end of the process, just that they're being investigated.
OK, Corrie, thank you. Look at other news now. And the family of a care worker killed in the Manchester Arena explosion have praised the heroic efforts of a member of the public who used his wife's belt as a tourniquet to try to save his life. The inquiry into the blast heard how John Atkinson from Bury told a police officer that he did not want to die. He'd been just 6 metres away when the bomber, Salman Abedi, detonated his device. The inquiry heard it was more than 45 minutes before a medical team attended Mr Atkinson. 2 off-duty police officers are said to have risked their lives to intervene after a knife man stabbed 1 man to death and injured 2 other people in Walton, Cardiff, near Tewkesbury. The man who died was tonight named as Matthew Borman, a 43-year-old married father of 3. A man is being questioned by police. Now, the British airlift, which saw some 8,000 Afghan staff and their families rescued from Kabul, was singled out for praise by the Prime Minister today. But most of those people are still stuck with no homes and no idea of what's going to happen to them next. Around 7,000 of those who were brought out remain in the limbo of temporary accommodation. 80 hotels are providing them with a roof over their heads, but as Dan Rivers reports, they have very little else.
They left their home and everything they held dear in Afghanistan, and now this tiny hotel room has been their world for 6 weeks.
This is the room where myself and my wife...
Fareed Rahmani, his wife and his 6 children are crammed into 3 rooms in a Watford hotel. Their comfortable life in Kabul suddenly was snatched away.
Half of my heart still was in Afghanistan. It's really difficult, just to grow up in a country and after 37 years. You have to leave your country.
His old life as an interpreter at the British Embassy in Kabul seems like a distant dream. A dream which was shattered in the summer when gunmen tried to assassinate him. A bullet hit his arm, narrowly missing his heart. Their escape from the Taliban means their only possessions now are those given by charities. They have no idea when they'll be rehoused.
Unfortunately, we haven't heard anything from the Home Office. My children keep asking me to get them enrolled in schools.
The new life of limbo is being experienced by 7,000 Afghans brought here under the Afghan Relocation and Assistance Policy. Zia Malikian family endured a 3-week hotel quarantine with a small baby and are still waiting for proper accommodation.
They need to take us somewhere so we know that this is our house where we can put in and we can send our children to school, and we know this is our life, so we can build our life in here.
Hello, so this is the boys' room. Today the Home Office confirmed the Army will now be helping to process these families, but it's already admitted it can't put a date on when they will be rehoused.
It is a concern that these families and very vulnerable young children are going to be in hotels for many weeks and many months, possibly right up to and through Christmas. because there doesn't appear to be the housing coming on stream.
Fareed's children are incredibly grateful for the sanctuary the UK has given them, but they need to start school, and these families need somewhere to call home. Dan Rivers, ITV News.
Still to come, the ITV Evening News. A lucky escape for the father and son as glass rained down outside their home. And
what is your favourite dinosaur?
T-Rex.
Why there's now a new dinosaur vying for our attention. Those stories and more after the break. Join me then. And welcome back. Now let's return to one of the major themes of our main story tonight, Boris Johnson's pledge to reshape the British economy. A perspective on the potential difficulties of that task was provided to ITV News by a prominent Conservative life peer today. Our business and economics editor, Joel Hill, spoke to the boss of Next, Lord Wolfson, and Joel's outside one of the stores now. What did he tell you, Joel?
Well, today, Mary, the Prime Minister set out his vision for a high-wage, high-productivity economy. Lord Wolfson warns there's a risk that Boris Johnson will end up delivering something quite different. The chief executive of Next, the Tory peer, as you say, told ITV News something is going seriously wrong in our economy. Companies are struggling to recruit, and unless the government makes it easier to bring in workers from abroad, then there's a real danger of high and persistent inflation. Lord Wolfson rejected the suggestion that companies are addicted to cheap labour. The problem, he said, isn't low pay, it's a lack of people.
You know, when you have vegetable pickers being paid £1,000 a week on farms in Lincolnshire, you begin to realise this isn't just about money, and certainly that is our experience.
Really? It's not really about money? Isn't that what it's all about, pay?
It's about people available to do the work, and if those people have already got better permanent jobs, then offering them more expensive seasonal work will just deprive another industry of that person. All raising wages will do is put up prices, and we all know that raising prices to increase wages doesn't make anyone any richer. It leads to an inflationary spiral, which is really dangerous.
Now, the government argues, of course, that if companies improve pay and condition, their recruitment worries will fade. Lord Wolfson, though, disagrees. He voted, of course, to leave the European Union, but says Brexit was about taking back control of immigration, not an excuse to raise the drawbridge, which is exactly what he feels Boris Johnson's government has done. He proposes business should be allowed to bring in as many people as they want, with two conditions. Visas should be granted for foreign workers only if they're paid as much as British workers, and if companies pay a tax to the Treasury. If the government doesn't do something, Wolfson argues the danger is the squeeze on living standards will get even worse.
OK, Joel Hills in London, thank you. Now, the World Health Organization has approved a malaria vaccine which is to be rolled out across Africa. The vaccine could save the lives of hundreds of thousands of African children who die each year from the disease. There are calls on the government to help keep industries running as wholesale gas prices reached a record high today. Prices are being driven by strong demand and reduced supply. The price dipped again after Russia pledged to boost its supplies to Europe. Now, we have been running a series of reports, you may remember, on ITV News, investigating the appalling conditions endured by many people living in social housing. Well, tonight, some dramatic footage has emerged from an entrance camera at a block of flats in East London. A father and son barely escaped with their lives, as Chloe Keedy explains.
What started as an ordinary trip to the shops was seconds away from ending very differently. Abdul and his son Mohammed were barely through their front door when two sheets of glass crashed onto the pavement, missing them by little more than a metre.
As soon as I put my foot inside the house, the window went crashing down. And it was the loudest noise I've heard in my whole life.
Mohammed showed me where it fell from, a window 3 stories up that he says has been broken for weeks.
Oh wow, so you've got no natural light in here
No, I haven't
at all.
had anything since Sunday night, basically.
Mohammed's brother Ahmed sleeps in this room. He says he warned his housing association, Peabody, multiple times that it was dangerous, but they failed to get it fixed.
We've complained to Peabody for nearly 2 months now about my bedroom window that's broken. They never listened. They didn't take it as my emergency.
Peabody told us it's launched a full investigation into what it calls a serious incident that shouldn't have happened. It described this footage as distressing and said we are relieved and thankful that no one was hurt. But the family next door are worried that it could happen again. They say they first complained to Peabody about the windows in their house 18 months ago. Mahira showed me how the one upstairs is jammed open and coming apart.
That's as far as you can get it closed?
That's as far as I can. The window itself, that the wooden frame is coming down, so the glass is actually putting pressure on the wood, so it can actually fall through.
So you think this could go at any time?
It could go at any time. Even just while we're talking, it could just fall down.
Since we contacted them today, Peabody has sent a team of people to inspect all the windows in both houses. Relief for the people that live in them, but also disbelief that it took something like this for them to get their landlord's attention. Chloe Keedy, ITV News, East London.
And finally, when the phrase apex predator is used about dinosaurs, it usually suggests a huge monster like Tyrannosaurus rex. Well, now, a fossil found in Wales, after lying hidden for years in a drawer at the Natural History Museum, has been identified as one of T-Rex's distant ancestors. Just as fearsome, apparently, but, as Lucy Watson reports, the size of a chicken.
Movies are made about them. Nightmares happen because of them. The Tyrannosaurus rex is iconic. But a distant and rather less intimidating relative has been discovered.
We have the hip, the major part of this specimen. If I put it in, you can see very nicely how it would have looked like in real life.
These are the tiny remains of the Pendraig milnerae, the oldest dinosaur ever found in the UK. Dr. Stefan Speakman was part of the research team at the Natural History Museum.
Finding dinosaurs is quite common. Finding dinosaurs that are this old is much rarer.
Why should we be excited about this discovery?
So when you look at, for instance, something like a T-Rex, which lived around 66 million years ago, this is 3 times older. So this just gives you a sense of scale of how long the dinosaurs were here for.
The fossils were discovered in a quarry in Glamorgan in South Wales. It existed more than 200 million years ago, but would only have measured 1 metre long, including its tail.
When you think of a meat-eating dinosaur, you perhaps think of a huge T-Rex, but the Pendraig milnerae was much smaller, the size of a chicken.
Small in size, but another carnivore to capture the imagination.
I think it's really cool that long ago there was big monsters like that on Earth.
What is your favourite dinosaur?
T-Rex. They stomp.
So they stomp, and what else do they do that you like?
They roar.
They fascinate us and help us learn how the world came to be, whatever their size. Lucy Watson, ITV News.
And that's all for now. Raggie's here with news at 10, but from me and all the team here, bye-bye. Have a good evening.